Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Fire and Flair. I'm your host, Adrianna, and today I have a very special guest. Her name is Barbara Ressetar, and I call her my sage. She is just such someone who really embodies what positivity is, and I look up to her and wish that I was as positive as her. And we used to work together recently. I definitely think our paths crossed for a reason, and she's just one of the most genuine, good-hearted people I've ever met. She literally just makes my soul smile. I don't know how else to explain it. So she's here, and I'm just really happy to introduce her to everybody.
Hi, I'm very happy to be here, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to be here.
Well, thank you for coming. I really appreciate it, and I know everybody has busy schedules, and thank you to everyone who listens. Thank you to the guests who come on and give me some of your time. It makes my show better. It makes me super happy. We're transitioning from summer to fall, so I did have a little bit of a break, but I'm happy to be back recording and being with people. It just fulfills me in so many ways. But anyways, okay, so Barb is here, and we're going to be talking all about her experiences in her life, because you've lived through a lot, and really cool things, the differences between like the generations, because you are one of my only friends that's like above 40, so but I love it because you just have that like maternal instinct and way about you, and I really appreciate that. So I guess like my first question for you is, what would you say your favorite decade was that you lived in? Because I'm obsessed with like older decades. I wish I lived through them. I think I'm inherently an old soul.
I think for sure for me it would be the 70s.
I remember you saying that
the
before.
70s. I think that was the greatest decade for me.
And how old were you during that time?
Maybe about 20, 25. It was much different. Music, people. It seemed like it was more, even though there was still friction, but it was so less of it than it is today. So it was the happy times for me.
Yeah, I knew someone who was my age, but for whatever reason, he absolutely loved the 70s, everything about it, specifically like the rock genre of music. And I personally think that the 70s was one of the best eras for music, whether it was rock, disco, pop, whatever. Just so many classics and icons came out of that era. Like, I really like David Bowie and like some Pink Floyd, so I can like relate to liking that generation. And then besides like music, movies, like what was it specifically about that time? Were people just nicer to each other? Was it like what was your experience when you would go out?
They were nicer. I mean, they were nicer. In the neighborhood where I lived, people, just lock their screen doors, and people would knock on the door to come in. Now, I go back to those neighborhoods, and either the buildings are completely gone, or the people are living with bars all around every window and every door. When they have a little or nothing in the first place, but they have to live with bars. So that bothers me to see the decline in humanity and neighborhoods and us as people as a whole. Um, I think there's a disconnect because we don't talk to each other. Most of the time we're texting. Sometimes you have to see a person's face. You have to look in their eyes, feel their body language, get a connection. So maybe I'm just old school, and I like to do things in person. We don't have that. The children, they don't play outside anymore because they can't. When there's drive-by shootings, and it's just horrible, horribly disappointing to see what some of us have become as we have progressed so in life.
Yeah, I agree with that. And to give people some context, you were born and raised in Chicago, specifically the Inglewood neighborhood, right?
Yes.
That's where you spent a lot of your time growing up. And you even said, like, back in, like, the 70s, it wasn't what it was today. Like, it's progressively gotten worse.
Absolutely.
I think across the board, society has changed a lot in general. So it's funny because on one hand, there were, like, a lot of famous serial killers in the 70s, whereas now it'd be much harder to commit those types of crimes. So in a sense, I'm glad that we have technology for those reasons, but it's disconnected us so much the more that it develops between computers, social media, not having the face-to-face interaction. People they're afraid to talk to people. They don't want to have interaction. They're closed off. They're in their own world. There's no, like, any sort of, I don't know what word I'm looking for, like, not, like, getting to know your neighbor or just being more personable.
Well, it used to be in the neighborhood where they had what they call precinct captains, and they had precinct meetings. So the people in the neighborhood would come out and they would meet up at some hall or some church basement or something, and they would have a meeting. They would talk about the things in the neighborhoods. They would talk about the things that needed to be fixed. It was the garbage that wasn't being picked up. The precinct captain and the alderman, and they took care of those things. But the crime is so bad now until, people are afraid to go out of their house. You got the carjackings. I mean, and it was unheard of when I grew up. I mean, people were driving convertibles. You notice you don't see a whole lot of convertibles, especially if you go in the city of Chicago. I mean, because you should be able to own any kind of car you can afford. But, I mean, they're shooting at people on the expressway. That was never something that happened back in the day. And if it did, it was very, very small percentage, if that happened at all.
That's pretty crazy because now everyone associates Chicago with shootings and the South Side, which is really sad to me because Chicago is so much more than that. Like, it really is such a great city. It's beautiful architecture-wise. The food is amazing. There's so much to do. It just makes me sad that people associate Chicago with violence and shootings because it's not all that. It has progressively got worse. How much, like, it has changed, especially you being someone who's kind of lived through the development of, or seeing how it's progressed. So it's just really crazy. And 2 months ago, I went to this club called Disco in Chicago because there actually isn't a lot of, like, dance clubs anymore. There used to be, but they just seem to be disappearing. And I remember you saying you love going out dancing growing up. Like, I wish I lived during that time because that's just what I would have been doing, like, in my spare time all the time. It's my favorite part of going out, but I thought of you because they have, like, a disco floor, and I was like, I have to take Barbara here. We have to go. It's on my bucket list, going out dancing with Barb. Like, we gotta do it.
Oh, wonderful. That would be really nice.
Okay, so another thing I had thought of before recording this was, obviously technology has changed a lot in society as time goes on, but even it makes me wonder, like, are movie theaters still going to exist 10, 20 years from now? Because I feel like people don't really go to the movies anymore. It's all about Netflix and the streaming services, and it kind of makes me sad because, like, I grew up liking to go to the movies. They don't really make good movies anymore. I mean, do you feel the same and that you had other activities and things to do when you were younger and now it's like they're kind of disappearing?
But yes, I do. I remember a lot of ice cream shops in my neighborhood, mom and pop, little places you go get hamburger, hot dogs, french fries, stuff like that. And they really made homemade food. It wasn't the frozen fries. Yeah, and it was nice. We could go in the store, we could spend our money, we could have a good time, and you were treated nice. Now you go there to the neighborhoods where I grew up at. You got people hanging around outside the store more so than what's inside the store. That makes people afraid to get out of their car and go into the store. So that doesn't help the business. But if you don't, so yeah, I went to the parks, and we could go out and lay out in the park because we didn't have air conditioning in the summertime, and all of the people in the neighborhood, the majority of them, they would come out and we'd all just lay out in the park and turn our transistor radios on, have some Kool-Aid, some sandwiches until it got late, and the sun cooled it off a little bit because it had went down. Then they go in their homes. People didn't have to worry about people breaking in. They weren't doing that then. But now nobody uses the park. It's
Yeah,
just a
kids
park.
don't play outside anymore. It's really sad to me
They
because
don't.
that was like my favorite part of growing up.
Well,
Like
I mean, yeah.
I was the very, very last tail end of millennials where like we actually did play outside. Like I remember riding my bike around the neighborhood. I would knock on people's doors. Hey, can so and so play? My mom trusted me, like, just within close proximity. Like, we lived our neighborhood was like a circle, which was perfect because it was like, okay, I knew my boundary was to just go around the circle. But regardless, it was like back in the day, usually your parents were like, oh, when the street lights come on, that's when you know to come in. Was it like similar with your
Absolutely,
kids?
yes. And until I got much older, I would need to be in earshot of my mother calling me. My mother called me, and the next person would say, Barbara, your mother calling you. Barb, your mother calling you. Barbara, your mother calling you. Now I started going home. So it was always in the neighborhood, but they felt that you were safe because you actually had neighbors that looked out for all the kids,
Exactly.
anywhere you went. But now,
And
it's closed doors.
when you raised your kids, like you were the same with them. Like you guys can play outside, but
Yes,
when the streetlights come on.
I did them. Well, I hear some parents say that they don't want to raise their children like they were raised. Well, I don't always know what that means because I think all of us are raised different. Okay, but my parents, they from a very young age taught me yes, ma'am, no, sir. They taught me respect. They taught me not to steal, not to lie, and they taught me, about they didn't weren't religious people where they went to church all the time. My mother, I never known my father to ever go to church, but he'd always say a prayer when we got ready to eat. So they showed me good values, and they demanded good values from me. And that's how I grew up to be who I am. So I did the same with my children, and I thank the Lord that they have a good heart. They're helpful. Um, they work hard for what they have. They don't expect somebody to hand it to them. They don't get mad if they don't get it. They just work harder or figure out a way to get it that's legal. And I'm proud of them for that, that they have that type of attitude about life. And I wish some more would have that. But I feel bad for the youth.
Yeah,
today.
I think it's good that your parents instilled good values in you and you carried that over to your kids. I think when people say that they want their kids' upbringing to be different than theirs, usually it's whatever they didn't have growing up or things they didn't like that they just want to provide better for their children, which is great. I mean, we've changed a lot through the generations, but on the other end of that, we have forgotten good old school values, and I feel that kids are just so sheltered, and that's why the term snowflake exists, because kids don't play outside. They're just stuck in home all day, playing on the iPad or video games. They're not being exposed to just having that, like, falling down and scraping your knee, or maybe when you're outside playing you get lost but you have to find your own way back. Like, it's just small things like that. It's interacting with kids, it's taking initiative. Like, I just feel that is so lacking with kids these days, and that's part of the reason why I'm so apprehensive to have children, because I want my kids to be able to play outside until the sun goes down and have a normal childhood, because to me a normal childhood is doing those things, not sitting inside playing games, or where I have to constantly worry, are they going to be safe, like being outside, is somebody going to abduct them? And I get that part of it, but it's like kids are still subject to other things being online, especially at a young age, and how they're just exposed to technology. Like I literally know 2-year-olds that can, if you give them an iPad, they know how to go to YouTube and pull up a cartoon to watch. So that's great, but also on the other end of that, what is exposure to technology doing to young kids these days? Like I don't think it's good. I don't think that kids under 10 should have a phone. You know, I mean, would you agree with that?
I absolutely do. I have some members in my family that the pacifier is to give them an iPad or give them a phone.
Exactly, the new pacifier.
You know, and I mean, I speak on it because it's my family, and I'm going to say it because it may help to change their way of thinking. But when they're dealing with that iPad or whatever, there's no eye-to-eye contact with you as a person if they're talking to you, because they're used to this thing. They don't, how do you get to feel or hear what someone else is saying that's in the room with you, because you're dealing with the simulator? But there's also a pacifier where sometimes, take some time, pick them up, let them, if you're cooking something or doing, maybe doing fruit, put them up there with you, get a little stew so they can be included, so that you don't feel so isolated, because otherwise, you don't have anybody, you just have this thing.
Exactly. It's such an easy way for
human
parents
contact
to...
is gone.
For sure, that's a really good point. It's such an easy way for parents to easily give them something so they be quiet, so they're distracted, they're not bothering them, and I get that. Like, I'm not a parent, but I understand needing those moments where you just kind of give in and you're like, okay, yes, you can watch TV. I just need 10 minutes to get dinner made or to do whatever. But it's just so habitual. I mean, you see kids have iPads when you're going out to eat. Like, it's just all the time. And they are missing out on other quality time they could have with their parents, and their parents teaching them skills. Like, yeah, it's not always ideal to be like, all right, like, I have to make dinner, but why don't you help me? Like you said, cut up the vegetables, set the table, teach them how, like, real life skills.
They learn. They might, but how do you know what your children is really interested in when all they have is their iPod?
Right.
You might see something that they do that they really are taking a liking to, or they're helping to cook, or they interested in wanting to do that. Who knows? They may be the next chef, coming up. But if you just set them in a room somewhere and give them that, you don't know what they're watching. How do they communicate with another human being? You can communicate with an iPad and a phone, but what about your speaking skills and your eye contact and your body language? Are you comfortable talking and asking questions or from someone else?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And it's what's a crazy concept is that if you give like a 4-year-old an iPad, they'll pull up YouTube and they'll watch other kids playing, like with things or just in general, instead of actually playing themselves, because they say playing is so important developmentally for children, because it forces them to be creative, to explore themselves, to have imagination, social skills, so many things. Like, playing is so important, and kids aren't getting enough of that. And with the iPad, they are losing communication skills. I think we might start seeing that their speech is more delayed. It's going to cause learning disabilities. Attention spans are going down. I don't know. It really worries me across the board. I have such a love-hate relationship with technology, but I feel more so, I hate it, with social media. I think there's more negatives than positives, because at one time we existed without all these things, and we were perfectly okay. So something I also thought of during our conversation when we were talking about how kids are really just given iPads. I mean, even in schools now, they don't have textbooks, they have iPads. So, my brother, he's 10 years younger than me, and that's kind of when I started seeing that become more popular. I was like, oh, wow, they're actually using, an iPad for school, because again, I was kind of that last like cut off generation that didn't have that. So it's like it's going to be a new thing where it's like, oh, how old are you? Well, I actually use textbooks in school, so that gives you more insight into how old I am.
I imagine my surprise when grandchildren went to school. Well, when my daughters went to school, they had books. You know, I mean, books. And it's like, wow, do you have homework? And I was like, yes, we have homework. So then when the grandkids went to school, man, we're talking maybe 10-year difference. They went to school and they came home with no books. So what they did, like you said, they had books, but they have one set of books, and you use the book while you in class. So if they had 4 classes coming, each person used that book, so they cut down on costs. So now I see, like you say, they're doing the iPads now. It's just all online. I guess as long as they're learning, that's
Right.
fine. You know, technology does evolve, so I guess this is the new way of doing it. But I'm also hearing a lot of children that really want to go back to school and not want to do this from home.
Oh, yeah, that's another point. COVID has changed the landscape for not only jobs and everything else in society, but school too. And some kids have stayed virtual since the pandemic a year and a half ago. And I think, like, I asked my cousin who's 15 and my brother who's 17. I asked them both. I'm sure maybe for like a couple months it was nice being at home and not having to get up early and get dressed. But I asked them, I said, do you prefer in person or virtual? And both of them said in person. So it really does make a difference having that. And I understand being safe, but I think for the mental health of students and them being able to learn better in person, we need to get back to that. Like, that's more important in the long run.
And
I mean,
also the social skills.
yes, the social
because you
skills.
think about you looking at people on a monitor, or you're sitting in a room somewhere by yourself. You know, you don't feel the energy and what's going on around you. You know, I mean, I think this COVID has really just really hurt a lot of people. You know, not to mention a lot of people that's not here anymore. But the landscape has been changed drastically.
Yes, and it's gonna take a while and be a transition while we're getting through learning how to manage being in a pandemic. But I think over time, like, obviously we need to have a balance of being safe and like assimilating back into normal society. But we really, really, there needs to be an emphasis on getting back to human interaction, contact, normalcy, just things not being so virtual. Like, I can't even turn the news on because everyone they interview, it's over Zoom. Like, I'm so sick of hearing an interview over Zoom, even watching the news. Like, I don't even like that word anymore. I don't like anything virtual. Like, I just am so over it. And I didn't even like have virtual classes, so I can't imagine how the kids are feeling. I would like be going crazy. They haven't been able to have social events, homecoming, football games, all those like normal things that they should have.
I just think some places in the city the children can't even have recess. You know, that's a time out to go outside to burn up some energy, to run around, to play. They keep them in. They keep them in because they need to keep them safe. You know?
Yeah, it's just not normal. It's not okay.
Violence. Yeah, because of the violence. You know, it's a shame that, I don't know, it just hurts me to think that we as human beings, we're shooting at kids and old people and, you know, just no respect, you know, just none. I could never think to treat another human being that way. So I'm wondering, what is the anger about?
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's another thing too, is like kids haven't been able to do sports, so they don't have outlets and other ways to manage all these emotions they're going through and just have healthy things that keep them like out of trouble and, you know, having bad thoughts. Like, that's why it really worries me, because I feel like what you're talking about with like the violence in certain neighborhoods, like, it's only going to amplify what's already there. Like, can you imagine just being stuck inside, having to go to school, and you have no outlet for an activity or to see friends or any type of normalcy? Like, it's not only going to make people more sad and angry, but who knows what else. Like, I just don't think that people, I could get into a whole spiel about COVID that I'm not going to get into because
I know.
it just starts to get messy with politics. But all I can say is that if we keep placing such an emphasis on like, oh, this variant, this vaccine, like we're missing the point. Like at some point, humanity really needs to just come together more and like have that normalcy. And I'm actually having an episode, or I'm going to record one that's talking about the benefits of being outside in general, that so many people, like vitamin D in general, it's just so good for you, and being out in the sun and nature, like people really need that, especially after being cooped up for since, March of 2020. You were saying how there is such an emphasis on youth these days for so many different reasons, and it's kind of scary to think about. Like, these are the people that are going to be taking care of us one day. This is the future of the country.
This is our future, and I've often asked, what type of future will that be? I mean, with the murder rate just in Chicago alone is just ridiculous. I mean, I grew up, maybe you hear about 3 or 4 people maybe got shot, maybe one died. Now it's like people are numb to it. You hear on the news, 45 people got shot over the weekend, 5 dead, 8 dead, 65 people. It's like the numbers, it's like, that's insane. I mean, it's insane.
And you said a lot of it starts with like the parenting and not instilling the good values in children. Like, where do things get lost in translation? Like,
well, I truly do think that I feel that if you have a child, this is just my feelings. If you have a child, you teach it things. That it's easier to teach your child from the beginning than to have to unlearn something that he learned from someone else. So
I agree. Children are very impressionable, and you do set a tone for them. Like, a lot of reasons why people have mental health issues is because of things that stem from their childhood and the way they were brought up. Parents try their best. They're not perfect. I think there's always going to be something that someone is going to have to kind of unpack as far as, like, mentally something that happened when they were brought up. But, like, overall, it's just, I don't know. I'm not saying parents are not good parents these days, but I just think, like, remembering small things, like let your kids play outside, give them more freedom.
Well, nowadays in certain areas, you don't want your children outside. I mean, I lived in a neighborhood where the park was less than 20 feet from my house, but none of the kids played in the park, because the drug dealers had the park, and they sat there and took care of their business there. So
I guess I'm more so thinking of like your average like suburban neighborhood, but there are other problems that present themselves when it is more of like an inner city neighborhood or Chicago. So I personally, like, I've never lived in that type of environment, but it is really sad, and I think that, like, they do need more help. We have to do something to help them, because they're even more challenged and at a disadvantage than people who do grow up in like a nice suburban neighborhood. And like I said, you lived in Chicago, like you have seen the evolution of what's played out as far as that. And I think that you would be someone who would be a great like preacher, volunteer to really like talk with youth. I actually wanted to do that. I wanted to volunteer at I think it was like the juvenile detention center or something like that.
I filled out some
you were going to be like a referral
so I thought you'd be great with that.
And so I just really was hoping to do that, or I want to do something similar, and I think you should do that as well, because like I said, you've been through a lot in life, you give great advice, and you are just very positive, and I think that's what people need. They need positivity. They need to feel like there's still good things that can happen to them in life.
Well, that's exactly, I try to do that every day of my life, is encourage somebody that you can make it. No matter what, you don't have control over yesterday, because you can't go back and change that, okay? You don't have control over tomorrow, because you haven't got here. Tomorrow hasn't gotten here. The only control you have over is yourself today, okay? So a lot of times the things that happen to us is of our own doing, but instead of facing it, truthfully and honestly and sorting it out, we prefer to blame it on someone else. So we go around with this hostility and we take it out on other people when the hostility is really in you because of who you are. But we all make mistakes, and you can always rebound from the mistakes, but you just have to figure out what it is and deal with life honestly. It's not going to be a bowl of cherries, you know. Some people have it easier, and some people have it worse than others, you know. I mean,
But you're saying to like, yes, some people are born into better situations than others. Like, we're not denying that. That is a reality.
mm-hmm.
But, you know, it's like take the bull by the horns and make the
and,
best
and
out
do
of your
something,
life.
but
And
don't
you
let
did that. Like,
but don't let because you don't feel that you were born into the privileged quote people that you can't achieve your goals as well. Maybe they might be a little bit harder for you to come by. Maybe you might not have the resources, but there are resources out here. You know, a man once told me, he said, you can eat an elephant one bite at a time. He said, it may take you a lifetime to do it, but you'll find that each year he gets smaller.
I like that. That's a really good way to look at things.
Smaller, you know. So, and hard work pays off. And yes, it's not always easy. You have to work hard for what you get, and sometimes it's difficult. But you feel a sense of accomplishment once you get there. You know, because I made it over that, and you start to look back over where you thought it was too hard to do. You look back over, and I made it over a few hurdles that I thought I wouldn't get over, which should be some encouragement that you'll get over the next one as well.
Yeah, and you and my mom are very big on saying, like, just take things one day at a time, which is such a hard concept because it's easy to feel overwhelmed, but that's really all you can do is, like,
that's all.
Take one day at a time. And one of my all-time favorite videos of you is when you were talking about kids these days and how they behave badly in stores and their parents just letting them get away with it. Like, I could watch that over and over and over. It cracks me up. I love it so much. But it's like, it's very true. Like, even you see kids misbehaving in stores, and I genuinely feel bad for the parents because, like, they're kind of, like, screwed. It's like you're going to be judged no matter what you do. Like, it sucks. Sometimes you have to let your kids sit there and scream, but other times it's more so like...
I totally disagree. It wouldn't happen on my shift because, first of all, you teach them at home. So, as my mother said, you teach a child at home. So when you take him out in the streets, all you have to do is to look. Just give them the look. And they already know. I don't believe in whippings and beating a child. I think you're an adult, and that's taking advantage of someone smaller than you, that you're abusing them. But sometimes it never hurt me, you know. I only got spankings once or twice, and that was it. And you know what? Sometimes I say the best way to the brain is through the behind, you know. I mean, because they don't want that. It's just like anything else. Yes, you can talk to them. Talking is good, but sometimes every now and then you might get one that don't listen to sound reasoning and talking. So you have to have a means of communicating with your kids and showing them love. I think love is the root for everything else to grow. You know, from that, when you carry them, you love them. When they're born, you love them. And when you raise them, you should raise them with love. I think that's how a child learns what love is, so that way they go out and they share that with other people. If a child is grown up and all he has anger and hostility, never been shown what love is, how do he know how to show it to someone else? So I think we got a lot. We've come a long way, but we have a long way to go.
It's hard. It's like on one end, you know, a lot of like your generation and even my parents, like corporal punishment was a thing, but too much, like with the belt and that. Like I don't necessarily agree with that at all. I think that's a bit like excessive. I think a spank once in a while, if they're truly misbehaving, is fine. But it's finding that balance. It's like we went from such corporal authoritative punishment to like now it's too relaxed. Parents don't have control of their kids. And I think that is where, like, for me, listen, I'm the one calling the shots. You're going to do what I say. I'm in control. You lose the minute the child thinks that they're in control and they have you. And a lot of them do. Like, I see it these days. And it's like, I would never allow that. That is not in the best interest for me or my kids. So it's like, how do we find the balance? I think we have to get back to that.
Well, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I have 5 daughters, and I love each one of them dearly. And they were all different. They had different personalities, of course. They had different aspirations in life. They took different courses in life. But the one thing that we always had was love in our household. No matter what we went through, it was always love.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see the differences in the generations because I feel on one end we've worked on things that needed to be worked on, but now there's still things that need to be worked on. Like, it's two different extremes, but like you said, instead of like seeing challenges as like a pity party, oh, well, this happened to me, so now, my life is ruined, or I'm just going to have this chip on my shoulder. Like, it's not the best way to approach life. Like, you just make the best with what you have, essentially. I feel like you're someone who's really good at that and just embracing, like, trying to be positive. And I think that more people should have that outlook.
Well, for me, I have to process whatever it is that I'm going through. And you have to be honest with yourself about what it is. So you can't walk around and be angry with it because you're angry with what? Something that's an entity? It's not, if it's not a person. I mean, what do? You carry that around. Some things that happen in your life, you didn't have no control over that happening to you. Okay? That doesn't make you a less of a person. Your thought pattern is what holds you down of how you feel about you. Because if you let someone else's opinion, as you say, define who you are, then who knows what their opinion of you is. So I have always been,
you're like, that's just
person,
not going to be me. Like, I'm going to not let what others think define me. I'm my own person. I'm going to make the best out of everything. And you really have one life. Like, we have to be present in this lifetime now and just do the best we can. And challenges are not always a bad thing. They really do make us stronger. They prepare us for things down the road. They shape who we are. And so
absolutely.
We can't always look at them as like something so negative.
No, and even if they were negative, find a positive lining out of it. If it's no more than you survived it, when some person or somebody might have been in the same similar situation that didn't survive it. So try to find a positive something, how you can file it away in a positive space and say, okay, I'm going to leave that there, but you left it in a positive way. Because you have to empty, I call life emptying your garbage bag. You have to empty stuff every day.
I was just about to bring that up. You were such a big proponent of empty out the trash. You can't hold in all these negative emotions. You have to feel them, but then let them go and clear the clutter sometimes.
You can't because each day and sometimes each moment brings its own garbage, and it can really attach to you and weigh you down, even if you empty in it every day, And sometimes we have to take the time to listen to ourselves and hear what's going on, because we have that, God gave us that intuition to know when we're doing something right and when we're doing something wrong. And sometimes you just need to stand and get in a place where you can be quiet, listen, and be still, and it'll reveal to you what it is.
When you say garbage, I think it means holding on to like those negative things that weigh you down, and the more like attention and energy you give to it, the less room you're making for like better positive things. And again, we all feel these emotions, but it's feeling them, acknowledging them, but not holding on to them. Being able to let them go is really important. And my therapist had to tell me that like you're letting everything and everyone stick to you, and sometimes you need to just not let it stick to you. Like, you're allowing them to control your emotions and make you feel a certain way, but really you have more control than you think. And another thing that has stuck with me that I still think about like all the time is, I'd always be, and I've said this before, I'm an Enneagram 3, which is an achiever, and so I'm always trying to like set goals, achieve this, do my best, be perfect, like all these things, and you're like, just slow down and relax. Like, you're here for a reason, as much as you don't like it sometimes. Like, you're being prepared for something else. You're going to do great things, but like, you just have to understand that you're here for a reason. You're learning a lesson, and you're in preparation for something down the line. So we can't get, and this goes back to like staying present, of course, which is such a hard concept for anyone to grasp. Like, could have an entire episode on it. I probably should, but I love those little tidbits that you would tell me at work, because they really have stuck with me, and like, I think of them all the time.
I'm so happy, but you gave me some too now.
I know your favorite is the burning bridges.
Oh yes, you've given me some too.
Do you remember what it is?
Huh?
What's the bridge one I would say?
You said some bridges need to be burned down so they can light the way for where you going.
Right, exactly. I don't like to burn bridges, but some are necessary, and they can light the way for better things. So I always said about, I'm not going to say the name, but our old workplace, I want to light this mother effer up, light it on fire and let it burn the way to somewhere. So one thing I wanted to ask you, like, being a black woman, because you told me stories about how growing up, like, you lived during a time where there were 2 different bathrooms or water fountains. So I kind of wanted to dive into that and get your perspective, because I think it's important for people to understand, especially someone like me who is more white or has different maybe privileges. Like, I think there's a lot more awareness about racism and how to combat that, but I just want to hear like your perspective from someone who has lived through so many different eras.
Well, my parents were from the South. My father, he was a gifted man. He had knowledge that he could build almost anything, with his hands, and he couldn't read, but he just was blessed with the gift to be mechanically gifted. He built fences. He fixed our house. He took a garage and turned it into a place to live. He did mechanic work. My mom, they worked in the fields in Mississippi and Tennessee. But when I was born, we had a place in Missouri. And that's when I really found that there was a difference. I didn't understand because my parents never told me that I was different or anybody else was different. And when I saw kids my age, it didn't matter what color they were, I played with them, But they did teach me about the racism that was going on, but they never taught me to dislike anyone.
Yeah.
They said there's good people in all races, there are bad people in all races. So I just always tried to find the good in people. It didn't matter what your skin color was. But as I got older, I remember we used to always sit in the very back of the bus. My mother never told me why we sat in the back of the bus. So as I got older, she said, oh, this is because the people won't be walking all over you and stuff like that. And we just get more rest back here without people walking past you. Then we'd go to the bathroom, and I noticed that she picked certain places for us to use the bathroom. And then as I got older, I started to learn to read, and I seen where it said white only, coloreds only, or Negroes, here. And I was like, why do we have 2 bathrooms, So one time I remember walking down the street, and my cousin and I, we were just playing. I didn't know. I walked into the front of a restaurant, and it was like all eyes was like, why is she in here? I didn't know. I just wanted to order some fries. I didn't think I was any different than anybody else because I had never been told I was different. I had my money. I buy the fry, and they made me leave out of there.
Wow. So you couldn't get service.
Yeah, I had to go to the back of the restaurant to get mine because that was the kitchen for the black people. To go to. So I got old enough, and I wanted to sit in the front of the bus. Okay, because I wanted to see where I was going. I wanted to see some scenery. I wanted to see stuff. So I remember the first time I did that. We was the first one, and I got on the opposite side of the driver is, and that's where I wanted to sit. And so my mother, I noticed that she didn't say anything, but she got in and she sat there too. And she didn't say anything. She said, "This where you want to sit?" And I said, "Yes." So I hadn't been old enough to know about the Rosa Parks thing, but I just always figured I get in where I fit in, so I never felt like I was any different. But I do know there's a thing of racism, and it's still alive and well. But it was back then, it was just in your face. You know, they would call you the quote, the N word, then, you know, but now we won't say it to your face, but we'll say it behind your back, or we'll describe you that way to someone else, but just not to you. Now, because people want to sue, and even people that have been called that, they don't want to say the word. The word is nigger, but if you look it up in the dictionary, it's an idiot. It's an ignorant person. It doesn't say anything about a color. Okay? It doesn't say anything about a color. It's just an idiot and an ignorant person. So any one of us human beings could be considered a nigger if that's the case, because there are some people that are idiots.
Okay? That's like interesting, the origin of the word, because I personally didn't know that. Like, I had never thought to look up. Like, I always just thought it was like obviously associated with a black person.
It's an unintelligent person.
Right. Like, I didn't know the origin actually just meant an idiot. So that's really interesting.
So, well, back in the day, that was how you think about the slavery and how it happened in the first place. I could just only imagine those people that's been sold in their own country by someone in their country to the people that brought them here in chains to the United States. You know, they were stole in the dark, blindfold, beat, terrified, and everything, and they brought here in the bottom of a boat. So they don't know where they came from, because they don't know which way they came, so they don't know how to go back there, because they don't know how they got there. Okay? So you drop them over here in this land, and you beat them, and you make them into submission, and you make them work for you. And you make them work for you. So I could just imagine the confusion, and not to mention that most likely all of them didn't speak the same language, because they came from different tribes in Africa. And all they knew. But there was always somebody somewhere that wanted to be free, you know? And I don't think it's right for one person to own another human being. It's not your right to own another human being, you know?
No, I don't like that at all. Like, I can't even, I don't like watching the news. There's just certain things I can't stomach. Like, I don't even like scary movies. I can't watch people being tortured, and, like, the thought that like, the fact that used to happen throughout human history, just like it like is so heartbreaking. Even thinking about like the Holocaust or slavery, like the fact that existed is just so mind-boggling to me.
But that's been since biblical days, though. You know, this is not something that has just started. I mean, there's been prejudice throughout the beginning of time.
Yeah.
You know, one group don't like this group for whatever reason. This group don't like this group. You know, it's like most of the wars are religious wars, you know.
Which is sad, because it's like, will that ever change? Can we get to, like, a place of peace between everyone, or do you think it's something that
this earth,
will exist forever?
It will happen, but it's going to be the Christ that comes back that's going to have that. Because we do say there's going to be peace on earth. But just not now, you know, because it's...
Well, from a spirituality perspective, they call this thing we're in the third dimension, and we're slowly going into the fifth dimension. And so 3D is very, like, ego-driven, kind of what we experience here, life on Earth, very materialistic. And then this supposed fifth dimension is, like, moving more towards... like a better humanity, like things are better for humanity. There's more love and peace, and it's not what it is like right now. I don't know how to explain it. It's really weird. Like if just Google 3D to 5D, and like you'll fall down a rabbit hole of stuff. But it kind of is the same as what you're saying. Is like this big thing is gonna happen that's gonna kind of like reset humanity, or we finally will get to a place of peace. So we see it in our lifetime? Probably not.
Well, you know, the one thing about it is whether we see it in this lifetime, we will get to see it. There will be peace on earth one day, because the bad won't be here. The bad will be weeded out, and it'll be just good. There will be no room for hospitals and jails and the violence and stuff. We won't have to go through that. But right now, we just have to keep praying and do what part we can do to try to encourage somebody to change from those and give them a way out. Sometimes it's easy to tell somebody what to do, but you need to also try to show them and give them a hand up. Sometimes we're like crabs in the bucket. One crawls up and almost get out, and instead of letting that one, or you push that one out so he can get out, maybe he can throw our line back and pull all of them out. They'd pull him back down in there so he can stay with them in that bottom of that bucket.
I know. So. It's a terrible cycle. I hate humanity sometimes. Like on one end, I want to really like be a positive force like you and help people, but it's so hard when you feel like you're not.
It's not easy to even say this to be that to yourself, because
right,
you can easily slip off into that ditch yourself, and you say, oh no, I can't go there. I can't go there, because that's against what I believe in. But you do have to check yourself. There are many points in my life, and sometimes in a day, that I have to check myself to keep from going down there, because it's easily slope. It's easier to do wrong than it is to do right. It takes effort to do right.
I would agree with that.
It takes
not
effort.
Giving into our what do you call that, animal instincts.
Yeah.
Really having to think of others and be empathic and just really consider someone other than ourselves. So. It's tough, but, luckily there's people like me and you who really try to be good people and put out good vibrations into Earth. And
well, you do.
We want to inspire other people to do the same. We really do.
Absolutely.
So what is your advice that you would give to young people or, throughout your life? What are the biggest, tidbits you have? What are your biggest regrets? What do you advise people not to do?
Well, I pretty much did. My life took the trajectory that I chose. I don't regret it at all. Are those some things in there that, yes, I would do over if I had the chance? Yes, hindsight is always 20/20. But you know what? I don't regret any parts of it, because I didn't have a bad life. It was some bad things that happened, but I was able to process them, and I thank the Lord for having a mind and not being a person that just succumbs to the pressure. I know people have issues with it, but
I think the fact that you're able to look back and say you don't have any regrets is really, again, it goes back to your, I don't want to say positive mindset, but just, I think that more people, should embrace that. I always want to live with no regrets, but I think making peace with your past is, a really important thing that one has to do with their life, like you said, things happen the way they did. This is my life. There are no regrets, because
right. You take and make the best that you can out of the life that you have, because you can't go back and change what happened yesterday.
Right.
Whether it was yesterday. It was 10 years ago, and some people never come out the past. They keep bringing the past into their future.
Mm-hmm.
Every day. They bring it with them. And I heard a display. A man, he kind of gave they did a little play about your blessings. He says some of us go around and we want to hold on to every bad thing and every negative thing that somebody that said to us or looked at us the wrong way or did something to us wrong. We want to hold on to all that. He said, but then when the Lord throws you a blessing, you're holding on to so much garbage till you can't reach your hand out and get it. You still got that garbage. You're holding on to the negativity, getting rid of the negativity, because it just spoils what's to come. You say, there's hard times. I'm going through one of them now where it's a change that's about to happen in my life.
Yeah.
Okay? But I'm not going to be bitter about the change. When the change happens,
well, it'll be
it
good
is what
for you.
it is.
I think this change will be better, because I know what you're referring to. When you do go through periods of hard times and transitions. I've been in one for, I would say, at least 2 years, but are things getting better? Yes. So, like you said, you just have to...
I have faith. But back again, going back to where I came from. I know what it's like to have a lot. I know what it's like to have a little. I know what it's like to have very little. Okay? I will never say have none because I've always had some of something, you know. But I learned to use that little that I had to make it to the next day and to go forward. So it kind of prepared me for days that the lights go out. I know what that's like. I have oil lamps. As long as I have some oil, I have a lamp. But it's just things that make you think. What do you do? People that have never experienced that, they don't even have a flashlight in their house.
Yeah,
You know,
you
people
always
don't
say
even
that.
use plungers no more. They have no clue what that is, you know. And so I keep up with those little things because you're going to need it. Because I'm telling you, the preparation for what's to come is everybody's going to need to become as self-sufficient as they possibly can because you're not going to be able to run and you're not going to be able to get away from it. You look at the, even when they're evacuating these places that's burning up, the highways get so full. The people get a traffic jam. They run out of gasoline with the people trying to leave from where the fire. So what does it tell you? If that starts to happen all over, what is going to happen to us? We're going to not have gas, so you're going to have to take a stand where you are.
Yeah, well, you brought up the fact that without electricity, like,
nothing works because it was set
screwed.
years and years in the makings of putting it on this grid, which is great. It's great. But technology can be used for you. It can be used against you.
I know. I'm like in this in between where I'm like, I need to have real life skills that don't require technology, but everything is so technical that I can't get lost in the shuffle and I have to keep up with times. It's like so like I need to find a balance.
Well, you'll find your balance. You know, you'll find your balance. You know, there's somebody for everything. You know, but like.
Well, you've seen technology. Not to like keep going back to that, but you've seen it change so much. Like
changes daily.
Yeah, now daily. Like
It
there's always
changes
something
daily.
new. Like before you'd at least have a decade to like get acclimated to like a CD or a tape or
It
an
changes
8-track
daily.
or whatever.
I remember the 45s and the 33s and the 78s back in the day, the vinyl records, and then they went to what was it? Was it the video? What was it? It was. Oh, I think it was the cassette tapes or the VHS tapes.
VHS,
and then they
DVD.
went into the cassette tapes, and then you get the CDs. And now cars don't even come with CDs.
Yeah, they don't come with
didn't.
CD players. Everything's on your phone, not even an iPad. It's on the phone. You have streamings and services and apps. Like, yeah, it really is crazy.
So it's moving right along at a high rate of speed.
The best was one day when we were in the office and I said something about a meme, and you were like, now what is a meme?
I didn't know what a meme was. I truly did. It cracked me.
Okay, so I won't expose your age because I know that's like a formality, but I am proud of you for adapting to technology because, like, we had this conversation, like, some older people just refuse, it overwhelms them, they don't like computers, but you have Facebook, you have a smartphone, you use the computer at work. That's not easy. Like, it's really not adapting to all these different technologies, so you should be proud of yourself.
Well, you know what? I am, but I'll still say all the way through this course, it's been people like you, people like Aaron, you know, just people all through this whole time has helped me. So I've grown. Who I am, I didn't make this by myself. It was all the other people that have come along this journey with me, who I'm eternally grateful for because they didn't have to take the time out to do that, you know, and I'm grateful for that. So it's not just me, it's many other people that played a part into this pot of soup that you're looking at.
Well, right. Yeah, it's always good to have people help, but
Yeah.
the fact that you took initiative and you were open to it and, you know, you just kind of learned things is really good because, like, my grandpa, granted, he's, like, 85, but he, like, just wants nothing to do with technology or he's gotten a little better, but, like, he doesn't like computers. Like, my grandma's actually more versed in that than he is, but I don't know, some people are just, you still see older people pull out like a checkbook or like, I know you like your paper. Like, I would do everything electronically.
I know.
No, I need a paper copy. So
yes. But
it's small things like that.
And after a while, that falls by the wayside too, because now they say, "Do you want me to email it to you?"
Right.
So, okay, all right, no problem. All right, and it's amazing to me when now you go with your watch and you just flip your watch up there, and your checkbook is in your watch. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. So it's amazing to see all of this, to be able to live through and see these changes.
Yeah, I think we need to put a pause on technology, to be honest. Like, we've advanced and come a long way, but it's like, can we have a little bit of a pause and get back to just having that, like, real-time interaction with people and more camaraderie? Because everything, whether it's like now people are working from home, they're doing Zoom meetings, you are dating through an app, you're having things delivered through an app, you're watching TV, like everything is through a screen. And it's like, I don't know, I'm just so inherently different than most people. I'm an old soul, so like for me, I really try to make a point to do things that aren't so technology based, but I just think that like that's a little reminder to everyone listening, like let's incorporate a little bit of like real life.
Yes. Let's come out, get away from the iPads and phones. I mean, you think about it. You see people even sitting down at dinner and they on their phone.
Yeah, it's so sad.
So
and I'm a culprit
CEO of the company, that you got to be on beck and call. And even then, when do you disconnect from all of that?
Exactly. When and how do you disconnect? I'm finding ways. Like, I personally will meditate, journal, do yoga. I like to be out in nature. Like, I really make a point to do that, but I just feel like other people maybe not so much. It really isn't a priority, but I just think it has so many benefits. Like, I really hope as a society we can just get to a point where everything isn't so about technology. I don't think it's healthy. And I think that as someone who has lived through different generations, you would probably agree with me too.
I do. I like the interaction with people more so than, I mean, it's good to have, because I remember going to the Museum of Science and Industry many years ago in the 60s, and they used to have this thing there, this phone that we all used to want to play with, and they said in the very near future, can you imagine that you will be able to see the person that you're talking to on the other end of the phone? And that always fascinated me, and I got to see that.
Wow.
Now, whether you do FaceTime, stuff like that,
that's so
you
cool.
get to see that. So technology is, and they was talking about when man would go to the moon. Well, man has been to the moon.
Yeah.
Now you got individuals in spaceships going to Mars. I think my mother never believed that they ever went, but I believe they got somewhere.
Yeah.
But that's never going to be home for any of them because it was never designed to be home, and that's my belief only. Because we were put here on Earth, so we need to do better taking care of the Earth that we live in, so that we will have something for. They keep hollering about the future generation. Well, what are we doing to leave anything? What are we leaving the future generation?
Yeah.
On top of who is the future? Because some of the things that's going on here is not, not things that I would want to see in the future. So I'm praying that we get better. But I still think that all things at least start in the womb.
Yeah, there's room for improvement always, but at least we've been making better strides to recognizing, global warming's a real thing. Like, we really have to work on trying to, recycle and do better for the earth, because, like you said, what is the future of the generations? Like, we have to take care of the earth. We only have one, and as of right now, we're doing a pretty good job of ruining it and our natural resources. So
you have people that don't feel that it is, and other people that feel that it isn't. And it's like anything else. Just like I'm saying about parenting, it doesn't mean that you can be the best parent possible, and children, like you said, they're not perfect. We're not perfect. Parents aren't perfect, because there's no book to tell you about parenting, because every kid is different. It's a set group. You you kind of wing it as you go, um, with with your children. But you have to have a foundation because you can build anything if you have a good foundation. But if the foundation is not there, whatever you put on top is going to crumble anyway. That's why it says start at the bottom and work your way up. That way you know what's down there. You know what the foundation is like. So, meaning I know my kids, I know what their foundation is like. So if they choose to go out there and do something that violates that foundation, then that's on them because they knew right from wrong. They couldn't say, I didn't know that was wrong because I couldn't teach them everything, but I tried to give them enough knowledge to be able to make a decision on whatever it is that they might come up in against in life.
Yeah,
you know?
I think the biggest value that parents really should try to teach their children is to like be a good person.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're such a great person, like so genuine, good-hearted. I know you brought up your children to be the same, but I think that's probably one of the biggest things that comes to my mind with like what can we leave. What is one thing parents really should instill in their children is just to be a good person, really.
But I just think you are just awesome. I see your, we call it my little firecracker. And I see your name is, Fire?
Fire and Flair.
Yes,
yeah.
and that fits you too. That
Thank
fits you.
you.
But you, you have a lot. You have a lot of things. I'll be looking for you one day. And I'll see you on television. You'll probably be a broadcaster with a mic in somebody's mouth, telling them to give you the story.
I only hope so.
You're going to be fine,
I mean, I've had to accept, like, my path is just going to be so different from everyone else. And I really tried fitting myself into a box of what I think I should do. And it just hasn't worked. So I know I'm destined for more. And it's going to be an interesting road to get there and not easy. But I just have finally accepted after so many years, like, your path is not going to be the same as everyone. You are not meant to be in a 9 to 5, and that's that. And I am, embracing that more. And, going back to what you were saying about me being, like, a firecracker, it's interesting, people's perceptions because I feel like not everybody sees that in me, but I also don't think that I've been my true self to a lot of people either. I tend to be a lot more reserved in some instances. You're one of the people I feel I can truly be myself around, but even some people that are my friends, I don't know if I can say that I truly feel myself around them. And so, some people might see me as more quiet or shy or reserved, but it's that's because you don't truly know me, because I can be that, but I can also be I have this other side to me, and I feel like I want that other side to come out more.
Well, its other side will come out when you want to bring her out. She will come out. Right now, I mean, I'm who I am. They ask me, are you dressing up for Halloween? I say, I wear my mask every day. This is what you see. This is what you get.
Yeah.
Okay? I feel that that's enough. Okay? I have finally come to terms with myself. God made me enough when He made me. And it may not be enough for you, but that's why it's other people, so you can keep going until you find out that one that is enough. But I am enough.
Oh, of course. I feel bad for people that don't know you, because everybody should know someone like Barbara.
I don't know. They might want to throw me out the door. Because my kids tell me that all the time. I feel like Roger Dangerfield, because Mother's Day come around and they roast me. And but then they also tell me that, but we love you, so I guess that wasn't too bad, But yeah, I was.
If you don't like Barbara, there's something wrong with you. Seriously.
Well, you know what? A lot of people don't like me because I just tell them the truth. But I'm not out to hurt anybody's feeling. I just want, you just can't sugarcoat stuff nowadays because it's coming at you raw. It's daggers and bullets coming at you.
Seriously,
you expect me to give you some cotton? No, this don't work here.
And I found that, I'm someone who would never, say something to try to hurt someone's feelings. I'm just always so conscious of, that's not who I am at my core. I would never want to, hurt somebody or be malicious. And I feel like I'm always considering other people's feelings more than they're considering mine. And now it's okay, well, why am I, tiptoeing around others so much, making myself uncomfortable when really I should be more concerned with making myself comfortable, because nobody is caring if they say something rude or mean to me. Like, I don't know. It's just
But you
taking
know
me
what?
a
Now,
while to have
just
to.
a little offer for that is, I think there are sometimes that you should just be quiet, and then there's sometimes you should speak.
Yeah.
Because it's never acceptable to me for the person to treat you or to speak to you nastily.
Exactly.
Okay? I don't suck that up because I'm going to tell you I'm not speaking to you that way. I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't speak to me that way. Now I have taken away they control over me because I'm letting them know that I don't accept that and I don't like it. Now maybe I have to walk away, but they already know that I don't like it, so I'm not letting them put their baggage on me. People don't want you to speak up. They do it for jobs. You can't say anything. Why do you have to be subject to abuse and not be able to say anything?
I agree.
When this is a free country.
We are taught that. We are taught to not speak our minds and our needs, and it leads to inner turmoil, and I am done. Like, I literally refuse. From now on, I will say whatever is on my
And you
mind.
say what you feel, and it's a respectable way to
Right.
say it.
Not hurting
But
anyone's
why
feelings,
should you
but,
have
like,
to not be able
right.
to tell somebody how you feel about it and do it in a respectful manner?
There's a difference between just being downright rude and like hurtful and speaking up on your needs and what you believe in and what you think is right or wrong. That's the difference. But I even wouldn't speak up for my own needs, and I had to realize like a form of self-love is doing that. It's like stop being so accommodating all the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, you either stand up on two legs or you lay down like a floor mat, and let people walk on you. And this is what happens. And people do get angry with you when you don't allow that. Or, you think you this or you think you that or you think you better than them. And you know what? I used to say, no, I don't think that. But you know what? I said, I think highly of myself, and you can think the same of yours. It's your choice. Okay? So I'm not going to dummy down how I feel about me for you. Bring yours up.
Yeah, like, just don't make yourself small to
fit in.
To fit in or to, like, get someone to like you. And that was something that I had to realize, like, for the longest time, I was such a people pleaser, and, like, that's a whole other, like, topic, but essentially...
I'd be happy to come back and we have another topic and we can talk about it.
Oh, yeah, we'll dive all into that. I would love to have you back on, but, yeah, I just think, like, you're someone... We've had conversations about this and just, the way we grew up, and people really just do take advantage of someone that is, like, a genuinely good person, and I always wonder, like, why do bad things happen to good people? But, like, me and you are someone who realized, like, no, we have to be able to be advocates for ourselves. Like, that's so important, and stop making everyone comfortable.
But sometimes the bad things that happen to you, I don't mean to interrupt, but the bad things that happen to you prepares you to be an advocate for someone else who doesn't have the courage or the means to stand up, Yeah. So, like I said, life takes you around. We don't all go in the same direction, but the wind blows in all directions. How do you know that what you've been through can't be a help and a blessing to someone else, even though it was something negative that you've been through? Could be something. I was looking at the TV the other night, and there was a lady that had some kind of brain. It was a hereditary thing that she was born with. Her brain, after a certain point, it would start to go down into her spine. But she had 3 daughters, and they all had to have this huge surgery to cement their neck so that it would stay up, to hold their head. And all 3 of them, I forget the name of it, but all 3 of her daughters had it too. And she felt so bad that her daughters had to go through the same thing that she went through. But they all made it through. But she didn't think about the fact that her parents, somewhere, the gene was there, and it happened to her as well, and then it happened to her 3 daughters. But they made the best out of it. I mean, it was hard, it was rough, but they made the best out of it. I mean, so when you look at somebody else's situation that's really worse than you, sometimes yours don't look so big.
Yeah.
And you think about somebody that's less fortunate than you. Sometimes you learn to be happy and praise and thank God for what you have. Because here's somebody else that don't have it, the things that we take for granted. So I try not to take any person or anything for granted because I have it today. I don't necessarily have to have that tomorrow. You know?
Yeah, expressing gratitude is huge. That's something that I plan to dive in more in one of my episodes, and just remembering to be thankful.
Yes.
That's important. And I think that just goes back to why you are such a good person in the way that you are, is because you really do like make a point to be grateful for what you have, and
Yes.
I really look up to you in that way.
Thank you.
So one thing I wanted to ask you, so we've been talking about like the generational differences in the decades. So for whatever reason, you know how sometimes like a memory will just be unlocked in your brain and you're like, oh my God, I completely forgot about that, but now it just like, I remembered it out of nowhere. I forgot that TV guides used to be a thing.
You forget TV
like,
guides?
You know, you'd get a little book and it would show you like the programming.
Yeah.
Like that's how like you used to be able to know what was
That's
going
how
on
you knew
TV.
it was on the TV.
Because
You
my
didn't have no remote
grandparents had
control. They would tell you that. Yeah. Everybody, or then it came in the paper. That's why everybody got a Sunday paper. You know, you got a Sunday paper because you got that. And hey, if it didn't have a TV guide in it, you'd try to be holiday. Hey, I had to buy one this time. You don't want to pay for the paper.
Like not knowing what was going to be on TV, or you either had to look at the paper or ask someone to go.
True.
Like
that's how
you
you
can't
found
just click
out.
a button on the remote. But I don't know, like that. I knew you'd be able to remember that.
I do.
So I was like, Barbara, remember TV guides?
Yeah, my mom. Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember that. Yeah, I remember we used to take a newspaper and do wrappings with it too.
Yeah. What's something that you miss that like doesn't exist anymore?
Something that I miss that doesn't exist anymore. Well, I guess something that I miss, and it's probably something unheard of, and I miss the ice cream shop that used to sell black walnut ice cream. I've been trying to find some black walnut ice cream for a long time.
I've never heard of that, but it sounds so
God. It is good to me, but you can't find it. So most of the things that I really like, they just kind of went haywire.
Let's go on a mission to find it. It has to exist somewhere.
I'm sure it does somewhere. I don't know. I tried. Last time I had some, maybe a couple of years ago, and Haagen-Dazs made it, but then I go back and look in there, and they got all of the flavors and cookie dough and everything, with no black walnut. So I said, okay, I guess all the people that like black walnut is probably deceased now.
It's not a hot commodity.
I guess.
That's funny.
Oh my God.
But see, I wanted to ask that question because I just felt like there would be something that you would say that I'm like, yeah, I've never heard of that. So I think I just want to wrap up this episode with something positive. And again, what would you say is like a great piece of advice that you want to leave for all of the listeners who are, you know, my generation, the younger ones? What do you really want to leave them with?
Well, I think I said something the other day to the effect that procrastination is an excuse for not executing. So a lot of times I think that's a problem. We fail to get started. We fail to even get off the line. And then you look up 10 years later and you're like, life ain't ever been good to me, but you never got up to get off the line either. So procrastination to me is an excuse for not executing. Exactly. You have to get out there and do something.
And I know a lot of people, I would say, who kind of, not that they didn't make the best out of their life, but they didn't live up to their potential. They settled, and so there's never going to be a perfect time to do something. And I kind of mentioned that in one of my previous episodes. And so, yeah, let's just stop procrastinating and just do the damn thing. Like, and stop being afraid.
I was glad I got here to come today because I really wanted to put it off to another day, but I felt so much better when I finally committed and I got up to actually get ready.
So happy you were
I am
too.
I am
too. The fact that this almost didn't happen was like soul crushing, but it happened, and I just thank you so much for coming on, and I can't wait for everyone to listen.
And anything good that you are doing, always, you know, anything good that you do, and if I can play a part in it some kind of way to help you to get to the next level, I'm always here for you, because I told you I love you, and I still mean that. I don't say that word just, you know, willy-nilly.
No, and I knew as much as I didn't like my previous job, we met for a reason, and obviously, like, I had to be in that job for,
Yes.
It served its purpose essentially,
Yes.
but I got to meet great people
Yes.
like you, and so
Absolutely.
I really take that, like, every job I have, I want to take something good away from it, or
Absolutely.
a person, and I knew we'd always be lifelong friends,
Yes,
and
we
so
will be.
I'm just so glad that you got to come on the podcast, so it means a lot to me, but yeah, that concludes today's episode. I hope you all enjoyed it and finally got to meet the one and only Barbara. She's a very special person and just such a great human being, and literally is one of the only people that can genuinely make me laugh. Like, whenever I talk about you, that's what I say. I'm like, listen, it takes a lot for me to actually crack up. Like, I could probably name only 5 people in my entire life that have the ability to do that, and you are one of them. And it just, like, I love it so much.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad, because I'm all about love, peace, and happiness.
Yes, love, peace, and happiness.
Yeah.
So we want to spread that to everyone out
Yes.
there. We hope you enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you next time. Bye.